How are you? Fucked. I'm dead.
Wow, okay. So with those pretty grim, dark words, I think the 2023 Tour de France has been conceded. Pogacar.
It's succinct. It's clear.
We should have slapped a language warning on that.
We know
Kate
where he
Bates.
stands on
We've just lost our primary school audience. Wow. Look, huge. Tadej Pogacar proving that he's human, of course. Race radio. Look, I always love his honesty.
I think it's really difficult in those moments to have, a particularly expansive vocabulary to describe how you feel.
Yeah.
Swear words were there for emphasis. I think he's nailed it. It is interesting, for all the debate over the years about what is an exciting Tour de France. This has got to be one of the cracker ones, but it'll finish with a huge time gap. I mean, it's 7 minutes and 35 seconds at this stage. We've still got one more stage in the mountains on Saturday night, the penultimate stage.
You're a noted statistician. We'll go back in the books. So this level of gap, what are we talking? How far back are we going?
We're going back to 2014. And that was
2, 3, 4, 5.
you're counting
9
backwards.
years.
That was when Nibali beat Jean-Christophe Perrault, and the gap was 7 minutes and 37 seconds.
Okay.
So it has been a fair while. I mean, 9 years, but that was then a huge time gap for the history.
Yeah.
But if we look back to 2021, 5 minutes and 20 it was between the Pog and Jonas. In the other way round.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it at all. But actually, when we say that, 5 minutes 20, and it was a pretty boring tour because Pog got the yellow jersey early.
He got it early, secured it. Yeah.
Won lots of stages.
Yeah.
And there was never really a race in it. So it's been different. This has been the most exciting tour in a long time. And that also happens to be a giant overall gap so far.
It's been neck and neck until it hasn't been. I think the last couple, pretty much starting with that time trial, which we'll talk about as well. But seeing Pog crack and all of that, I felt a little bit sad, but also very exciting times for your family as well, of course.
Great distant
that Danish
cousin.
blood, yes. Look, this is the Wheelhouse podcast. We're back in the bunker as the Tour de France races inexorably towards its conclusion. And as we say, the conclusion is pretty much foregone as time stands, unless something really badly goes wrong for Jumbo.
Don't mention it.
And Jonas. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. It's a massive time gap. My name's Joel Spreadborough. Catherine Bates is here. You've been watching it all.
I'm just gearing up. It's been nearly a month of sleep deprivation, but it will not end.
No, it won't.
We've got Tour de France Femmes. We've got the Super Worlds in Glasgow.
Yeah, all happening.
We're going to talk about all of it today,
We are.
Joel.
We're going to have a very special guest along too. So if you are even contemplating changing the channel or however you're listening to us, I insist that you don't, because it's going to be well worth hanging around for as we head up to the TDFF. Now, let's stay on this to start off. So Let's go to that time trial, because I don't think I've seen anything quite spectacular. As the mid time trial saying, "Oh shit, he's catching up to the cars. Oh no, what are we going to do here?" He actually nearly ran Pog down. So Wout comes out, everyone's like, "Whew, lightning." Pog comes out, everyone goes, "Oh gee, put down the glasses," and then this happens.
Well, they started with a 2-minute gap.
Yeah.
At that end. And yes, Pog nearly got mowed down by Jonas out there. What was remarkable, I think, it wasn't just that it was one of the most incredible time trials we've seen in a while. It's just the execution. He wasn't just a robot who can climb and he just took all of that time. There's been some side-by-side technique comparisons, especially around the early cornering, and he's making up 2 to 3 seconds on each corner simply by the way that he's attacking in and out of the corner and the line that he's taking.
These are the same corners that other riders are falling on, of course.
Falling, or even just pace-wise being a lot more cautious and a lot more conservative around it. And I think what we're really seeing here, more than the fact that Jonas is an absolute machine, because, that's pretty obvious, but it's almost like watching Chris Froome a little bit, insofar as can climb very obvious, can time trial very obvious. But in years past, his weak spot, his vulnerability has certainly been around skills, confidence, technique.
Yep.
So he's gone away from years past. He's worked on that. And now, I mean, we're seeing that certainly this year, he's unbeatable.
Well, we've spoken about it and we've speculated throughout this year. We've thrown out the old, where's Jonas? What's going on here? Is he wilting? No. Turns out, whoever said it, you or me, probably you, was right, that he was timing his run and he's timed it beautifully. I want to ask you about Pogačar because we spoke, obviously, everyone spoke about him breaking his wrist earlier in the year, and there was a little bit of noise at the time about, he's not really treating his recovery as maybe with as much respect as he should be. He's rushing back. He's not doing what he should be doing. What's playing the part in where he's at? Like, is it related to that, do you think, or is he just getting beaten by a better rider at this point?
I think given the time gaps, there's no question that this year Vingegaard is the best.
Yeah.
Jonas has just come with his A game in every way, shape and form. In saying that, you definitely can't say that Pogačar had the perfect lead-in with the injury, with the broken bone. And we should also mention that he didn't handle it as well as he could have. He said that himself, that he didn't. He went against the advice for rehab on it. How much has that affected him? We'll never really know. But he's certainly missing that top little bit. But if you do look at the GC and the snapshot, because that's what it always is until the final stage, it's still another 3+ minutes back to Adam Yates in third.
Yep.
It's still on top of that 3 minutes, 2 further minutes back to fourth with Carlos Rodriguez. So I don't think there's any doubt that he's still in pretty exceptional
form. He's still at the
form.
absolute top of the sport, for sure.
Yeah, it's just probably that intersection of Jonas being on the absolute best form of his life with Tadej coming in, a little bit vulnerable.
Yep.
They did change his preparation this year in the Classics, which he had tremendous success. Bit him in the butt a bit with his injury. But at the same time, if he got beaten last year, he had to change up his approach. If you just keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting beaten. I like it. I think it's brave of them to say, we're going to go after this with everything and try something different. And I dare say that at the end of the year, when they have their wrap-up meeting of, what worked, what didn't work, like we do here at the Wheelhouse. We have those honest conversations.
The Christmas party.
Yes.
I've been wanting to say this to you for ages,
It's really important that they do that in an environment where he's so valued and he values himself as well, has enough confidence that they can go, I don't think we should try that again. This worked, this didn't work, and move on to the next year. There's not a lot of riders who actually have the capacity with the team to do that because we'll touch on it a bit later, but if you look at Caleb Ewan, he certainly hasn't been in a position where he and his team can have that kind of honest feedback and then mould the next season around that. But I'm pretty confident this won't be the last big tour battle we see between these two.
It doesn't seem so.
I mean, potentially it could go on for a decade.
Well, I just go back to thinking that seeing him crack as well, it's just maybe just a little bit underdone, maybe just not quite there. But they had wildly different preparations, as we know, as well. And he's to come out and just say I'm dead. Well, he led with some more colourful language than that, but just to say it's sort of a concession on more levels than one. It's like, I lost today, I'm losing overall. I just think looking at this bigger picture battle, which is a battle that's been running all year leading up to this, He's off the pace. He's been found out.
It's a beautiful rivalry, though, isn't it?
It's a delicious rivalry.
It is. I mean, we've enjoyed the beautiful rivalry of the Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel for years.
Even though they just like, what rivalry?
Well, that's been a bit of a fizzer this tour, hasn't it?
It has been. Well, let's talk about Wout. We've got a few things to get through here. I want to talk about the Aussies as well. There's some good Aussie juju happening amid some disappointment as well. But quickly, Wout van Aert, while you mentioned him, he's done. He's gone. He's made the call.
He's off to have a baby.
He's having their second baby, I believe.
Second baby.
Have we sent a card and flowers?
Yeah, sure. Merksy?
Yeah.
Have we done that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's.
I think he's
In
off
the
with the
post.
newsagent doing it right
I think
now.
it's on the. I think it's in the post.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, let's clarify that his wife is having the bebe.
Yeah, that's worth clarifying. Biological clarification on offer there. Yes.
But I'm pleased that he's in an opportunity where the team is so secure in where they are at the tour that he can make that decision. The team can support him.
Yep.
And it's not an issue at all. I don't think anybody would begrudge him leaving.
I don't think
because,
so.
I mean, last week we talked about what should he do?
Yeah.
Is it reasonable to expect him to stay? If the time gap was only 9 seconds.
Okay, that's going to change the team attitude toward it potentially.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. But you don't take a rider knowing this situation without already having had that conversation.
They would have had to have. Like, this was always on the cards, of course.
I think so. But, the biggest bummer he'll leave without a stage win and he'll leave without being able to celebrate on the Champs-Élysées with his team. I think that, that would be a bit of a bummer. Not as much of a bummer as missing the birth of his child.
That's exactly it.
If we're comparing.
Well, he did his ET quote, which I loved. He said, I will remember this as the only tour in which I phoned home every day. So really, really good because he's clearly had his mind elsewhere. And he's still an absolute beast because he's Wout van Aert. But he is where he wants to be. And he's had a very, very busy year, a very successful year. He's been all over it. The profile has grown ever larger with Netflix and everything this year as well. I say good on him for making the heart choice and making the family choice.
Well, isn't that a bit of insight, though? Doesn't phone home every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on now, fellas.
I'm done.
Call your wives.
Oh, yes, sorry. Note to the rest of the peloton.
Yes.
Call your
phone
wives.
home. There are people
Call
stressing, sitting on the sofa watching you race.
Get on the phone.
You can borrow our phone if you like.
All of you. Yeah. No, but look, congratulations to him and good luck to them. I'm really interested with what you say if it was a much shorter time gap because his role and his incredible array of skills become, not only a bonus but a necessity in those kind of circumstances. But Jumbo, very gushy in the whole, look, it's all good. We like it. We know. Well, we'll see you soon. It's all
their
good.
tour has been perfect. You couldn't write a better tour. It started with some controversy about how was Wout riding. Was he riding as a team?
Yep.
He had his cranky pants on.
Yep.
Water bottles got thrown.
There were, Badon tanties.
Badon tanties. They
Yep.
settled into it. It's for what we know it's a team sport, but also one rider wins.
Yeah.
Jumbo have shown this incredible team tactics, which was particularly notable on the stage where a couple of their riders went in the break and one by one they dropped back from the break to pick up Jonas after Jonas had attacked, ride with him for a while.
Yep.
They would then run out of juice. The next rider would drop back and pick him up. We saw it happen with Laporte, with Kelderman. It was so beautiful. You could just see that there were so many of the Jumbo athletes who were capable and committed to the cause. But I want to highlight here, Joel.
I can feel a game show idea.
A little bit of Aussie excellence here.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. I'm thinking like perfect match.
Oh.
Right? Because not every team is Jumbo.
Yeah.
Not every team has 5 riders who can go in breaks, drop back, do it all.
Yeah, I like it. So the best support players, the best duos, the best partnerships.
The MVPs.
Yeah,
the perfect matches.
I think perfect match is taken.
Oh,
We
I
call
don't
it
know. It
real-
hasn't been on
real
telly
love.
for a while. It's possible that the trademark has expired.
I like Wheel Love.
Yeah, it's a
you
really
you
nice
don't, though.
name.
You don't. Okay, that's all right. We'll workshop it.
So,
Okay, who have you got?
Glutzy.
Yeah.
Glutz O'Connor
Yep.
and Felix Gall. Took the stage win. Ben O'Connor got his glutes working exceptionally well.
Didn't he just?
To take him up the climbs.
But, Felix Gall at the end of it was like Rocky. He was looking for O'Connor, just like, burn! Because he was so happy with what O'Connor had done.
And Glutzy photo bombed or interview bombed, video bombed mid post-race interview.
Yeah.
He just comes on in for the big bromance hug.
Yeah.
I loved it.
It was outstanding.
These
outstanding
pair,
work.
until now, I feel like the Mark Cavendish And Mark Renshaw bromance is the strongest the sport's seen. But on this one stage at the tour, we had all these beautiful ones emerge.
Yep. Okay. So we had, we also had, of course, Chris Harper.
We did. He was riding in service of Yates, and that was beautiful.
It was lovely. And I like that you're highlighting this, Kate Bates, because we often talk about it's an individual sport made up of teams and individuals doing their individual thing to go for individual glory. Ben O'Connor himself has said, look, it hasn't been quite the tour that I wanted it to be, but gee, I had a good time helping out Felix.
And what a good fella to be able to take the disappointment of aiming for a podium and it not happening.
Yeah.
And instead of just tail between the legs, ride to the finish,
toys
but
out of the
for
cot,
nothing,
that sort of stuff.
He diverts and he's able to contribute to his teammate winning the stage and to the team. I thought that was excellent. Jack Haig for Pello Bilbao. Another one who perhaps we had some slightly bigger ambitions for, albeit a late call-up. And look at what we've got. That was a brilliant ride from the Bahrain Victorious pairing.
It was. And Pog hasn't been completely alone either. I'm going to round out the perfect match column with UAE, because I think that as much as he's fallen behind, he's had help when he needs it as well.
He has, and so he came on the radio and he said, "I'm done, I'm dead, my day's over."
Yep.
And the team director said, "Mark, you stay with Tadej all day." So Mark Soler, who could have potentially challenged for the stage himself, stayed with Tadej all day.
Yep.
He looked over, constantly checking that he was okay. They knew, and at the end of the stage, Pog actually said that without Mark, I don't know if I'd still be on the podium. He got me through. And it's that kind of like brothership, that camaraderie that some of these, especially for Glutzy, it's about the stage win and the victory, and it is about chasing that. But if you look on the other end, it's also about just getting them there.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got Merksy dialing in. Good morning, Merksy.
What about Pogacar missing Alan Piper?
Well, it's good timing you mentioned that, Merksy.
Thank you, Merksy. And
that's why he's producer extraordinaire, because he reminds us when we miss dot points on our rundown.
Yeah.
Alan Piper, great point. He misses the Aussie. He knows Alan Piper was part of Tadej's early success, and I think more than just being a phenomenal, team director and around the physiology, I think he made him feel kind of emotionally safe. He made him feel like no matter what happened, he've got this. And Piper's now coming back to Jayco Alula, so he will be joining them and offering some of that. But
getting him back in the green and gold net.
Yeah,
all the
but
Aussies.
I can understand that, because without Gary Sutton, I always felt like I was a little bit lost in the woods. And when he went and coached America, that was a bit of a tough moment, I thought.
Bloody defector.
So I understand why he did it, and they've won some gold medals on the back of it.
Sure. Look,
but
granted.
These relationships are really important.
They are.
In the sport, and we've seen it in the highs that Tadej has seen, and now we're seeing it in some of the tougher times. I don't want to call it a low, given he's still going to finish, in all likelihood, touch wood, second at the Tour de France.
That's the extraordinary thing about this.
So let's catch our terminology there. But not what he wanted to achieve. Let's say that.
Race between two. Like let's be honest, and he has, in that context, he's been beaten badly, but he's still ahead of a whole lot of other riders. So. We've seen Jumbo as well. Laporte Kelderman obviously supporting Jonas beautifully. Jumbo in the headlines for so many reasons, not only dominating the tour, but also getting involved in potential fan scuffles and stoushes as well. What do you know about this?
So this is a really interesting. So there was a crash earlier on where Van Hooijdonk and Kelderman came down like a sack of potatoes after interference from an enthusiastic fan roadside who stepped a little bit too close. Now, they were injured, but thankfully not too badly. Some other riders involved in the crash. But Jumbo-Visma have said, we're calling time's up. It's no longer acceptable. They're professional athletes. There are $1 million just from a commercial side involved, from sponsorship to teams to salaries to athlete well-being. It's not good enough anymore for a fan to just say, oh, sorry, I got too close.
Yeah.
And while it might seem intimidating and you think, oh, come on now, like, let's not sue fans, they have a responsibility. And if they don't take that seriously, then what is going to make this change if it's not something like legal action?
Well, I saw a fan the other night, and it was Pog going past, and this guy's friends were trying to hold him back. They were trying to hold him back, but he was pushing away. He was that keen to touch Pog, and it's like it's only a matter of time before that becomes...
Oh, absolutely.
You know.
But what I find interesting is on the flip side of that, I think the organisers need to step up, because Pello Bilbao got fined for pushing, punching, touching a fan who was getting all up in his business while they were climbing. Granted, we don't want to see any punch-ups happening, but put yourself in Bilbao's lycra and cleats for a moment.
Yeah,
You'd do the same.
It's tight, but
It's
I'm there.
It's not fair
Yep.
that he has to even contend with that. So he's now being fined for essentially keeping himself safe, and they're saying, oh, you're putting the sport in disrepute.
What a juicy grey issue
I'm
this
going to
is.
say ASO have to step up. They have to keep riders safe.
Yep.
And they have to make sure that they're not in the position where they're either getting knocked off, where they're punching them to even get through, where motorbikes are stalling and not able to get up the climbs, which is causing all sorts of chaos.
That's another one I want to jump into as well.
Because the crowd control isn't there. I'm
Are
sorry,
we just
but
talking about...
ASO have dropped the ball on this.
Yeah, are we just talking about barriers? Are we just talking about like a good 2 metre gap and barriers like they did in the game of cricket, with players getting mobbed on the boundary rope, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that logistically that is difficult when stages go for hundreds of kilometres, but there's definitely sections up climbs where that should happen.
Yeah.
The rules currently are that it has to be the last kilometres of a mountaintop finish have to be barriered off.
Yep.
But I think if we look at all that happens is they move further down the mountain
Yeah.
so that they can get close. But if
Look, hey, we're guilty of that. I take you to the
I know,
corkscrew,
I like
but that's all right,
corkscrew.
sure. We didn't touch anyone.
But if there was legal action against the fans who went outside their responsibility, if there was legal action against ASO because they're not taking their responsibility, I mean, maybe that has to happen.
yeah.
I'm not encouraging
It's a
litigious,
big can of worms,
but
isn't it? Like, but can you look? I'm with you. Don't get me wrong. I'm with you here. But can you imagine the backlash, the fan backlash, on a widespread scale? If that started to happen, I think
Okay.
there'd be a revolt.
now this is a serious one, but I put it to you.
Yeah.
What if an athlete suffered a career-ending injury, God forbid, a life-changing injury,
Yes.
because of the actions of a fan?
Of a
Would it
fan.
change then? Like, do you wait until that happens?
It's so
because
hard to
this is
know.
happening more often.
Yeah, it's so hard to know where sentiment, and this is, I hate having to say this. This is where sentiment sways, but it almost is it would almost need, I'm sorry to say this, but something like that to happen for people to be like, oh my God, actually, this is full on. Where if it was just these interactions and all of a sudden there's lawsuits, bans, all that happening, I think people would get the shits with it. But if something really drastic happened, it's like that bucket of cold water poured over the face. Oh, wait a sec. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying I want that to happen. I'm just saying that is kind of, I guess, the precursor to.
I
people
don't
getting on board
love
with
the
it.
litigious route, but I would be very happy for somebody to get sued to change behaviour.
To change behaviour.
Before we had to wait for something
yeah.
really serious to
We've
happen.
been seeing so much of it too. I've only been involved, around interested in the sport for a few years now. This has been a constant theme throughout that. I remember the very first tour, the 2020 tour, that massive crash on stage 2, which with the sign. It has happened in every Grand Tour and basically every other race since it happens everywhere. So something needs to happen. How you get it right without alienating, pissing off all the fans?
Well,
don't know.
I'm really keen for our listeners to jump in on this.
Yeah.
Give us your feedback, guys. Like, what do you think could move the goalposts on this one? Because
and as you say, logistically a nightmare. You can't put barriers along 170 kilometre course.
no, but you
all the way up a
could on
mountain.
the climbs.
Yeah.
Or on the penultimate. Again, acknowledging that fans find a way around it. Corkscrew.
Well, even
That was us.
the most recent stage we saw once again. Now this brings in the motos. So getting in the way, fans trying to push Jonas to help him, sure. But my goodness, there was so much wrong with that. And it's this is the combination, this is the perfect storm of these motorbikes, which I've been talking about ad nauseum, and you've been talking about. I just can't stand them being where they are. We've seen them cause drama throughout this tour as well. We've seen them. There was the argument recently that one of them had slowed Pog down and basically stopped his attack because he's just flat out in front of him. There's that. But then there's this, and this is this combination where the fans are then coming in trying to push the rider, and Jonas is for the beast that he is. He seems like a pretty gentle-natured guy, a bit of an introvert. I don't think he'd be enjoying that. No,
and I also think that it's not like other sports; you can't ban them from the stadium.
That's a really good
point. So
point.
It's a complicated one, for
the
sure.
motos have been doing my head in, Kate Bates. I've been saying it on descents and everything. I just can't stand it. And that incident the other day. Anyway, Tour de France wrapping to its close. A dramatic conclusion. Kate Bates and myself, Joel Spreadborough, unpacking all of the important issues. But let's move on to the premier women's event in the calendar, of course, the Tour de France Femme, which is coming up very soon as well, Catherine.
Tour de France Femme, avec, Zwift. I'm excited because I have myself a cute little cap here as well so that I'm nice and coordinated.
Nice.
But even more than that, I've got a special guest.
You have a special guest?
Yes.
Wow, what a surprise. I didn't know about this.
Yes, we have brought in former pro road cyclist, top 10 in the world in the ranking, might I add, gravel bike Hall of Famer, multitasking. This girl's got skills. And Ali, you've self-described yourself as a cowgirl, a scientist and a storyteller, podcast host. We've got the wonderful Alison Tetrick. Great to have you here.
Oh my goodness. I would never turn down a conversation with you, Kate. This is my highlights.
That's a bit lovely.
It is. I enjoyed racing with Ali so much because she was an exciting bike racer.
Yeah.
You know, she saw opportunities in races and took them. There was nothing boring. And on that note, Ali, the Tour de France Femme, here we are again. I can't believe it's time for it to happen. But more than ever, we've got some really big names turning up. From an Aussie perspective, we've got a whole heap of Aussies that are on the start line. But I'm just going to start with the really obvious question. Who do you like for it?
Oh my goodness. Everyone likes to not have favorites. And I will tell you, if you know me, I always have favorites. So on our start line, we have our obvious favorites of Annemiek van Vleuten. We have Stage Hunter wins out of Cecile Ludwig. But every rider has done different preps. So my personal money is on Demi Vollering. And also she's a dear friend of mine.
Okay, I like that because Demi's had a hell of a year. We talk a lot lately about the SD wall on this show, and I think Demi has just been... We also talk about Demolition, Demistruction, Demination, all of it. There's so many Demis that we can play with.
Yes. Yeah. And also, though, if you just meet her, she's just like, yoga, namaste, got some dogs, I like ride with in my backpack, I camp with my partner, Jan, and she's just... So she had a different approach. So I think what we should look at, too, is the different approaches into the race. Because the Demolition, I don't know.
Demolition.
Demolition. Yeah. So the Demolition, though, is just been up in the Alps, having snacks and training at high altitude. And then you have ABV just crushing the Giro. But, also Demi is the queen of the Ardennes, won 3 back-to-back. So she's proven the classics, the strength, the power. So I think it's a head-to-head there, but then you can get some dark horses in there. So let's look at an Ashley Moolman-Passo to sneak into the top 3 GC, who also just signed another year.
Okay, love that.
Well, do you think that because everybody, there's so much focus on Demi and on AVV that it opens up opportunities for your Ashleys? And I mean, if we look over at Lidl Trek, even Go Aussie Go Amanda Spratty Blue Shoes, are they looking at each other enough that we could get somebody really take a big opportunity?
I think that with SD Works team, they're not going to let too much go up the road. But now that Trek Segafredo is now Little Trek, but then you have somebody like Gaia. But every time we say Little Trek Gaia, it makes me laugh because Gaia Gallerina she's quite small. So I know that's not Aussie, but she's pocket size, so she can climb quite well. So I think you have some dark horses. That's why Ashley Mulman-Passo, who has threatened retirement and then now just signed another contract for the second time in a row. And then on the American side, I know this is Aussie, but on the American side, we also have a Veronica Ewers who's done just some like secret escape routes out there and just like gotten a lot of fourth, thirds. She's proven she's learning the sport, the craft, and you have two riders that are just staring at each other. That's a great opportunity for an escape artist to get up the road and then cause a little chaos.
Well, it's fair to say that, Ali, you and I were not pocket-sized riders. Our strengths were not necessarily in the Alps, but more the breakaways and the sprints. There's been a lot of talk about Lorena Wiebes, of course, and Charlotte Kool and that kind of rivalry. What are SD Works going to do with Wiebes, Lotte Kopecky, and Demi Vollering? Like, they've got a lot to focus on.
I think SD Works has done a good job spreading the wealth this year. So at first I was a little concerned with the Strade Bianchi finish where you have two teammates sprinting to the line. And at one point, Demi wins, but you have Kopecky up there who's won it before. And you go, what's that going to look like for the support in these big races? And also Marlon Reusser, they have a huge powerhouse team. But I think what this team has done well is spread the wealth, spread the encouragement that each racer can achieve their own goals when it matches the ultimate goal of the team. So I think that also plays into the hands of SD Works, which I, in my heart, believe have a stronger team than a team like Movistar with ABV, where there's opportunity for all. And at one point, people have to choose whether to chase or let it go. And then that's where we can see either GC shakeups and then also the ultimate stage win. So I think it's going to be a fun play for SD Works to use, because if I'm like playing solitaire, I want their hand or poker.
We talk a lot about the usual suspects, and we have been talking about the men's tour as well, of course, with Pog and Jonas and everything. But what about, I guess, some of the lesser, I don't mean lesser lights, but lesser, lower-ish profile riders, and I'm talking about maybe a bit of a local hero in Juliette Lebeau or someone like that getting up and continuing the form we saw last year, dangerous across different terrain, of course, and just a very well-rounded rider. Is there any room for that, or is it just a race between the megastars?
I think there's 100% room for her too, because she ended up being 4th overall last year, if I'm not mistaken. And there's room, and there's also, as you guys know, and Kate and I have raced against and with each other, never with each other, but we were with each other in spirit. There's a lot of love that comes in suffering over mountains.
Are you guys? You're like the Van der Poel and Wout van Aert. You're like the female sister mans, not the bromance, the sis mans.
Yeah, we'll take that.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, we have definitely hung out in some hotel balconies together, being like, "Ouch."
I love you, man.
I
All
love
those
you.
swear words we heard from Podgy, we've muttered those while riding in, essentially the gruppetto.
In agony.
Just waiting for our stages to come.
Yeah, sure.
It's
wishing that those skinny girls up the front would just eat a goddamn burger. You're like,
or two
burgers.
Make it a double. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. I mean, I can't believe that we're at this point in the conversation and we haven't even talked about Marianne Vos.
Yeah.
With this kind of pressure, Ellie, because it would be remiss to not say the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift is different to every other race. The fans on the roadside, the media that's there, the people that are, investing. People like Marianne Vos, been there, done that. She's had the world's media on her for so many years now. Does that give her a bit of an advantage going in because the circus won't affect her to the same degree?
I think we're going to see Marianne Vos shine. Hopefully, I mean, I am a huge fan of her, of course, and she is our GOAT of women's cycling in so many ways, which means she's going to perform higher than any level that we thought was possible, which is really hard to comprehend considering the levels we've seen her perform at. But when she donned the yellow jersey last year, I kid you not, and it went very live public on our podcast, that I cried. because I never saw a more fitting champion to don the yellow jersey. So she's going to feel pressure, but this is where our GOAT performs, because I think the yellow or the green jersey ultimately suits her quite well due to her finesse, climbing ability, and quickness. But if I could see her in yellow again, I mean, I will sleep so well.
Well, she did it last year.
Yeah. She did it last year, and that was the most deserved. I've never seen a better champion donning these jerseys. So, but pressure, I don't think affects her, because she's grown up with it for so long. And I think we need to applaud that pressure, because this is her shot, like her time to shine. And she never thought that she could race the goddamn Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. And now this is going to be year 2, and she's back on the world's arguably biggest sporting stage for women's cycling.
I know. I've still got a little bit of crank pants on that we retired too early. We were born a decade too early, Ali.
Too early, yeah.
To make it happen.
I'm often pressuring Kate about making a comeback.
Not going to happen.
I think Kate should make a comeback. If she does, I will.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Deal.
Okay.
I mean, I actually think that Ali and I probably have a quite similar injury history. So I would say good luck to us both if we even tried. Ali, before you jumped into the convo, we were talking about fans on the roadside and how they were getting all up in everybody's business. And quite frankly, we weren't happy about it. We think it's really tough and unfair on the riders. Is it different in the women's race? Do you think that we'll see any of the women shove a fan out of the way like we saw Bill Bow the other day? Because knowing you, Ali, I reckon if a fan got all up in your face on a climb, you may well do that, and I would do it too.
Yep.
Is it fair on the riders that the organisers aren't kind of keeping a bit more fan control happening here?
I think there needs to be definite control of the fans. Whether it's ropes, because I did see the ropes work well, and then later up on the climb, like that sort of policing or whatever was not available. And it's also very hard to attack. And we watch Pogačar try to attack, and then there's motos because the motos are stopped because of fans. So not only are you ruining the race as a fan by getting in the way, but you're obstructing the normal caravan of a race. So that can be very dangerous for a rider. I think we'll see that in the women's peloton as well. However, if I'm dropped, like I wouldn't mind a fan giving me a push or like a whiskey shot, but like for the ultimate safety of the rider. No, I'm totally joking. But for the ultimate safety of the rider, I think it's important that there is some sort of policing or relegating just the ability for the riders to attack, because we've seen. And now as the tour has gone on a couple of days, perhaps that didn't change Pogačar's complete tour, but those are just like bonus seconds, which is his MO, and that's what he does. And to not be able to perform on a hill because there's nowhere to attack is very difficult. Yeah. So I think it'll be similar in the women's race, because we're exciting and super fun to watch. But also it's up to the race organization to make sure that the rider safety is paramount.
It's such a delicate balance. We were talking about this as well, and it's sort of the idea of lawsuits against fans getting in the way and that sort of thing is starting to come into the conversation, because that's how serious the issue is getting. I raised the possibility of, how do I say this, fans getting the shits on behalf of other fans. So if a fan gets singled out and, banned or punished or whatever, that creating a bit of a wave of sentiment against the sport. Basically, it's such a difficult balancing act, and the grim reality of that is that you almost need something really serious to happen for people to go, oh, wait a minute, this is why these kind of punishments are being dished out. But how can you possibly achieve that balance? We spoke about, things like barriers being a logistical nightmare, and Kate made the point, like, the climbs in the tour, there's definitely sections where you could have barriers, and we've seen it. We've seen riders, we saw it overnight. We saw fans trying to push Jonas along to give him a bit of a hand. And I made the point that he's probably sitting there going, can you stop touching me? I'm quite introverted and this isn't okay for me.
Yes.
That's the sort of shit that you could work against. But overall, Ali, it's such a difficult balancing act to keep fans on side, because you want that support. Of course you do. You want to see that passion. You want to see the peloton being celebrated and these incredible efforts that we're seeing at the tour and that we'll see at the Femme as well. We want to see them being appreciated. So where do we land? How can you possibly mete this out?
It's such a difficult decision because you do want the fans there, because that's what motivates the riders. And that's the beauty of cycling, is that you're not buying tickets to go to an NBA game and NHL. You know, you're not going to a venue. What you're able to do is like touch, feel, smell, and possibly drink too much beers on the side of the mountain because you've been there for 8 hours. So they're not making the best decisions in their lives. And yeah, Jonas is probably one of the most introverted people I've ever seen in my life, and he might not want to be touched. However, I have been pushed up a mountain briefly, and I was like, yes, I will take that. I need to make time cut. I'm talking with my friend Kate Bates over here, but like, we still need to finish this goddamn race.
Yeah, go on, help us out. Help us out.
Look, there is an element of that. There are so many exciting things about the Tour de France, Femmes, avec, Zwift. Ali, thanks for joining us, but I'm not going to let you go yet until I get your opinion on what has been one of the most contentious topics in the men's race for Australians. Now, our most celebrated sprinter, Caleb Ewan, he went there with Lotto Destiny. Everybody hoped and expected for him to win some stages. Didn't turn out as planned. He didn't have the form, a little bit unexpected for him.
Yeah.
But what followed was he pulled out of the race, just physically unable to continue. His body just said no. The team publicly threw mud at him and said, just not good enough. We don't pay him for this.
Yep.
It's now emerged that they've said he can, even though he's contracted until the end of 2024, he can go if he wants. Kind of whatever. Ouch.
And look, to qualify, we're a little bit sad about this, Ali, because we love Caleb.
We love Caleb.
We love Caleb, and we've been sad ever since Wollongong last year
when they didn't put him in the Aussie national team. If you were Caleb, what would you do? Because this is a nightmare for any athlete.
I've actually thought very long and hard about this, and I know I'm going to use the word bias, but biased to Caleb because Aussie, but also for other athletes. Like I saw some quotes from Israel Prem Tech about Chris Froome, how he didn't earn his spot to go and he's the biggest waste of money. And this is where I think cycling, and maybe sports in general, but especially cycling, to have your manager, boss, CEO, however you want to describe it, be that toxic to you who are employed by a company to perform. So my opinion is it doesn't just stop at cycling or soccer or tennis, or well, tennis I guess doesn't have teams like this. But if you had a sponsor, Kate, and like that publicly humiliates you that way.
Yeah.
My heart broke because there is so much mental trauma and emotional like hurt that occurs from that you're might be disappointed in your athletes, your CEO, your project manager, your VP, right? So I don't think this is cycling specific, but to make it that vocal and on this stage, I don't know if an athlete or human being can recover from that, because it's ultimately attacking your own personal will and well-being. And I worry about that for mental health for athletes. And also, like, can you imagine working for somebody that just is like, hey, Kate, that podcast sucked. That was the worst one I ever heard. You should be fired. And you're like, cool, I'll just like show up tomorrow and do it again. Like, where do you then get the best performance from your employee or your partner or your my heart just broke, because no one should be lambasted that way on the internet. But also, like, it's not sport specific. And then I said, why do we treat human beings this way? When if ultimately you want your human being, if you hire them, if they're your partner, if they're your coworker, if you want them to perform, that usually starts with kindness and grace. And I thought that was completely unacceptable.
I think you've spoken so beautifully there, and it's such a toxic environment when you haven't when you know that the people that are supposed to have your back don't have it, and when it's this public and it's played out in this way, he would be at such an incredibly low ebb. And the point to add to that, Ali, on the back of a really tough year. We mentioned Wollongong. We did it as a joke, but that would have hit him hard, and he's had blows ever since along the way. Consistent blows, career blows, personal blows, all of that. This is kind of the time that you need that cuddle, and it's just not coming.
It is kindness and grace. You put it beautifully
Yeah.
there. I did promise that was the last question, but alas, it's not.
I've got one more too.
'Cause
So
I can
can we
Joel.
have two more? Are we paying Ali by the question?
Oh, we can.
I am
She's
here
worth
all
it.
night for you guys.
Should
I
we
am
just combine
here.
it into one to save? Yeah, okay. Well, no, while on Caleb, it would be remiss not to ask about your pick of the sprinters for the Femme, of course.
Ooh. I'm going Weebies all the way, man.
Yeah, love that. Love that, Kate.
Well, you know, the best thing, Ali, it's not just us that you're giving your wonderful insight and wisdom to. I believe that you will be pretty busy during the Femme with your own podcast.
Yep. So you guys can listen in too. I do the Move, which is hosted by Lance Armstrong, Mari Holden, and myself. So you can watch We Do's The Move every day. I get up far too early again. But I watch a lot of bike racing and grab some women to come on and talk about their day too as we cover it. So
It is.
it's
And
super cool.
and that was your viral moment last year in broadcasting, as you were brought to tears with Mariana Voss. And look, just quietly, Ali, I hope there's another viral moment for you again, because the passion around this is sensational. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will be following along.
Yeah, absolutely.
And piping up in the comments too.
We'll slide into the DMs as we tend to do on
you
the
should.
Wheelhouse as
Maybe
well.
we should do another podcast in the next coming weeks to
I'm feeling a
discuss a little more
co-production.
of the Femmes, avec Zwift.
Yeah, I'm feeling a co-pro.
I'm just saying, I got a lot of opinions. They're not all kosher, but I've got a lot of opinions.
Oh,
you'd fit in really well here in the bunker, because
I
that's
can
all we
see
do.
Merksy, he's rubbing his hands together in the production
I think
booth.
I can hear him salivating over the microphone. Yeah, Merksy, stop it. That's really, really great. So, really exciting. We're very, very grateful for your time today, Ali. It's been lovely to chat.
Yes, thank you. And we will chat to you soon on the other end. And good luck with the podcasting, and Viva la Femme.
Viva la Femme. And remember to watch the Femme, #watch the Femme for the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift, because the more we like, watch, and subscribe, the more women win. And this is really important for women cycling. We had a successful, we'll just call it the first year, and then now we're in the second year. So we just want to keep building that momentum to make women cycling extremely viable, because visibility is viability.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
Love
Thanks,
that.
Ali.
Thank you, Ali.
I love you guys. Thank you.
What a legend.
Oh, my God.
I think my favourite line is when she says, I don't have a favourite, but Demi's my favourite.
But here's my favourite.
Yes. And really interesting views on Caleb too.
I think I'd love what she said. It's so true. Like, we don't want kid gloves and cotton wool all the time, but sometimes there's just a little bit of delicacy that can help situations like that. I really feel for Caleb. I think she spoke beautifully, and I've now secured all my tips for the Femme as well, thanks to Ali.
Well, and on the good side, Caleb does have something to look forward to.
Yes.
We've got Super Worlds coming up, and unlike last year, Joel,
He's in.
He's in.
I love it.
It's a good
fantastic.
sprinters course too, actually, in Glasgow. So the Aussie team announced the full roster across all of the different disciplines, 84 elite riders, including 22 paracyclists, 11 under-23s, 26 juniors. We've got the likes of Logan Martin, head styling the BMX freestyle in the BMX racing. We've got Saya Sakakabara, Lauren Reynolds. We've got actually all the big names in every discipline. It's very, very exciting. Beck Henderson in the mountain bike. But Caleb will be leading the sprint hopes of the Aussie men.
Yes. What
in
a
the road
lineup.
race.
My goodness. What an absolute weapon-loaded one. Weaponized line. That's what I'm trying to say. A weaponized lineup. There you go. I got there eventually. Looking at the road race, Clark, Durbridge, Ewan, Groves, Matthews, Stannard, Plapp, Sweeney. It's just it's an all-star.
It is.
All-star, rock star outfit.
It's a sprinter's course, and if you first look at the list and you go, how does Australia have so many riders? Well, they are taking some time trial specialists. So we're going to see Jay Vine line up at his first World Championships on the road, which is pretty exciting.
I like that. Yeah, Rowan Dennis as well there to sort of give him a little bit of the benefit of experience and whatnot, which is good to see. Can I make a quick observation? Actually, I wanted to make this.
Please do.
While
Joel.
we're talking about BMX, Logan Martin, of course, spearheading that outfit. But the men's elite BMX team are all Queenslanders.
Oh,
I just sorry to
Queenslander.
anyone that's not from Queensland, but sometimes that maroon blood just comes to the fore. And I just wanted to point out that Alec Daniludi, Logan Martin, Josh Matthews, and Jai Tui are
all Queenslanders. Boom.
I know you love that with your blue shirt on over there, but just thought I'd mention it. But
no, well, look, you've got Brodie Chapman. She's
yes,
a
Brodie
Queenslander
Chapman
from the Gap in the women's road team.
Yep.
And also, I'm really pleased to see Sarah Roy included there as well. She's actually just like 11th hour been named in the team for the Tour de France Femmes as well, avec Zwift. So she'll be coming in hot form. Grace Brown, I reckon.
Yeah, it's a team. It's a team.
It certainly is a team.
Brown,
so that's
Chapman,
a lot
Hanson,
to look forward to.
We'll read it like a footy team.
Yeah.
You got Brown, Chapman and Hanson at the back, Manley and Gannon in the centres. You got Roy and Spratt up front. It's an incredible outfit, Kate Bates.
It is an incredible outfit. So there's a lot to look forward to with Glasgow Super Worlds. Joel, talking about Sarah Roy.
Yes.
I couldn't help when the Commonwealth Games announcement happened. Of course, Melbourne, Victoria. Thanks, but no thanks on the Comm Games movement. I reached out to Sarah because she has had Commonwealth Games glory and it's been pretty important in her career to progress. And I just said to her, like, how's everybody feeling about that? Thanks to the ridiculous time difference in Europe, it wasn't possible to get her on the time in this on the show at this time zone with her preparation for Tour de France Femme. But what she said, she gave us a statement, Joel. I want to read it out. She said, it's extremely disappointing for the local government to back out of the Games and to do so in what appears to be in opposition to the Comm Games Association rather than working in unison to find a solution. I don't know all the details, but without a confirmed host city, and here's the bit that got me in the feels, Joel, now there will be so many athletes feeling stressed as for so many sports, cycling, women's cycling included, the Comm Games is one of the pinnacles and it's a huge goal they've been working towards. Now they don't even know if they'll get the chance to compete, and off the back of the last year's COVID, this sort of uncertainty is incredibly stress-inducing. Yeah. That's not fair, is it? To make all of the athletes feel like that around politics.
Oh, it's a crazy, crazy time. I think Dan Andrews, the Victorian Premier, his premiership was going to be remembered for COVID and the way that Victoria dealt with COVID. Some good things, some bad, but I think that has now been usurped by this because this was a spectacular out of the blue call, citing costs and all that, and making the decision in a real hurry, as Sarah alludes to as well. We got a comment from Merksy.
Guys, I've got Dan Andrews on the line, actually.
G'day, Dan.
He's just dropped out. But the Mayor of the Gold Coast says he wants to hold the games there again.
Well, they've got the infrastructure. Tommy Tate, it's all in place. They did it not that long ago, so job done.
Look, I'm a keen bean to get it back on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
I know, Joel, you asked the questions in here.
Palaszczuk's already, Anastasia Palaszczuk, Queensland Premier.
I'm going to flip it. What's your opinion as a sports reporter on the relevance of Comm Games? Because as an athlete, I want them to keep going. It's a very important thing for the athletes on their journey.
No, I get that. But what I was trying to say is Anastasia Palaszczuk, the Queensland Premier, has already come out and said, well, no, because we've got Olympics coming up. So
poo-poo that.
Not going to happen. So,
Tom Tate's enthusiastic. We can make it happen.
Yeah, no worries, Tommy. Is he going to pay for it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the ultimate bummer for me. And I understand, being an adult means that you have to talk about economics.
Yeah.
And not just in the way that you learned home economics at school.
Yeah.
But there is a commercial reality behind it. But that's so disconnected from an athlete's journey.
I agree. And I just think it was an overly ambitious plan. And all this stuff that they're saying about, this came out of nowhere and that's going to cost more than we thought. The arguments have been, well, no, it doesn't need to because there's existing facilities, there's all of this stuff. And I think Sarah's hit it on the head. It's in opposition to the Commonwealth Games Association. It's like you haven't actually sat down and fleshed out a plan B here. I think there can be a plan B, and I completely agree the Comm Games should absolutely survive. I don't necessarily think this is an existential threat at this point, but it's what are you going to do? They've rushed through this decision-making process, not consulted, doom and gloom. The reality is that Victoria's in a bit of a shit position and can't afford the $8 billion.
I mean, my view on it is that at the moment we've got the Women's World Cup, the FIFA Women's World Cup going on, and all of Australia got behind the Matildas last night in their opening game. They are playing all around Australia and New Zealand.
Yes.
Why can't we have the sports all around Australia?
That's a really...
And New Zealand. And in, cycling obviously belongs in Brisbane on the Anna Meares Velodrome.
Yep.
I think Parramatta Cycling Club could step up and perhaps host the mountain biking, BMX or road races as well.
Yeah, we'll just have that down at Daisy Hill, won't we?
But do you know what I mean? Like, I think that we can spread the love a bit and continue to make athletes' dreams come true.
Look, it's a huge logistical thing, but I think 100% there's time and there are resources in place to do it. But there's going to be pushback because of the major event frequency that's going on and that sort of thing. And the reality of this situation is that they needed to do some more negotiating and some more sorting shit out behind closed doors before this became an issue and before the public got hold of the idea that this is an $8 billion cost blowout. Because in a time like this, when we're all doing it a bit tough, cost of living and whatnot, hearing that is a sentiment buster. We've been talking about this a bit today. Things that are going to sway the opinions, and this is one of them. I just think logistically this has been handled so badly. The optics of this, the way they've got around and just came out and said it, the way the Comm Games Association reacted on the day absolutely suggested a blindsiding of an epic nature. And I just think whoever made the decision to take this public, and I kind of get why they did, because it's like we need to nip it in the bud. We need to get out there and just get ahead of this and just deal with the damage. I'm not saying that's the right thing, but it was an absolute disaster. And the thing is, if they would have spent a bit more time saying, hang on, here's a plan B, C, D, which might be taking around Australia. There's regional sports centres, there's capital city sports centres, all of that. We might have seen a different outcome. I don't think it's going to kill the games, and it shouldn't, and they don't deserve to be killed because they're brilliant. And the likes of yourself have, shone in that arena, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant to watch as a fan, as a lover of sport. It's a magnificent event, and this is an incredibly disrespectful way to handle it. But I just think the way they've done it, they've already done it. They've already got public offside a little bit because of the timing of everything else going on. It's going to be a hard one to fight back from.
Well, I tell you what, in the last couple of weeks, Merxie and I have enjoyed watching the Ashes, Wimbledon, the Tour de France. We've got Tour de France Femme coming up, the Super Worlds, the Women's World Cup is happening. Yep. We cannot get enough.
You left out State of Origin too.
Oh, sorry,
Queensland.
State of Origin. Yes. Yep.
Yes.
You had to sneak that one in.
No, look, I hope they can come up with the right decision. I just think it's important for the public to get the info, but sometimes you've got to handle it a lot better. You got to time your run better, and they just handled it so badly. So I'm really worried about the backlash. For whatever plan B or C is, how is that going to be received? It's going to be interesting.
The wonderful thing, Joel, is no backlash here in the Wheelhouse, so we don't need to worry about it.
My backlash is firmly against the Victorian government, because I just think they've made an absolute jar of marmalade out of this, and it's quite disgraceful. It really, and it's an embarrassment. It is literally at least a Commonwealth-wide embarrassment.
Well, I love it when we find something that you really want to cut your teeth on, and I think we've found that topic.
I will take a bite out of this table, Kate Bates. That's how. I could not believe it the other day. But anyway, we could fall into a rabbit hole. Hopefully, we can have some better information on this when we come back to the bunker, which will be about a week from now. And I want to stay across it because, as I said, I'm really worried about how people are going to react.
Up. Well, the Tour de France Femme starts on Sunday. We're going to have a lot to talk about next week on that one, and as well as all of the different disciplines at Super Worlds. It's going to give us a whole lot to get interested in.
It is.
I'd love people to let us know who you're most looking forward to watching at the Tour de France Femme, and what discipline you're going to get behind at the Super Worlds.
Yeah, don't tell us your favourites, but tell us your favourites.
Tell us your
Ali
favourites.
Tetrick would do.
Yeah.
This is the Wheelhouse Podcast coming to you from the bunker. We've covered some territory today, but now we've cracked and it's time to go. My name's Joel Spreadbury. Your name is?
Katarina Bartes.
Like, share, follow, subscribe. Tell everyone you know. Get involved in the Wheelhouse podcast. See you next time.